One morning you wake up and see the headlines. The dollar is falling, but no one really explains why. Economists argue, markets panic, social media fills with predictions, but the real question remains, is this just a temporary dip, or the result of a collapse 120 years in the making? Today, I'll take you on a journey through time from the age when the dollar was backed by gold, to the moment it betrayed its own promise, and into the quiet unraveling we're witnessing right now. Let's rewind 120 years. It's the early 1900s. America is rising, factories are booming, cities are expanding, and confidence fills the air. At the heart of this rise lies one thing: trust. Back then, $1 wasn't just paper. It represented real gold locked in a vault. For every dollar printed, there was gold behind it. So people didn't trust the paper, they trusted the gold it stood for. That paper became a symbol of belief, a tool that kept the wheels of the economy turning. The dollar wasn't just currency, it was a promise. But history always repeats itself. Power begins with trust and ends with greed. And in 1913, greed quietly changed the course of history. In 1913, the U.S. passed the Federal Reserve Act. Money would no longer be controlled solely by the government, but by a new, independent institution, the Federal Reserve. From that day on, the value of the dollar wasn't determined by gold, but by decisions made in closed rooms, decisions that shaped the global economy for the next century. The dollar was no longer tied to tangible wealth, but to policy, politics, and perception. It was still built on trust, only now, that trust belonged not to the people, but to the system itself. No one realized it yet, but that small shift would ripple for over 100 years. Then came World War I. While Europe burned, America grew rich. The world needed supplies, and America sold them for dollars. By the end of the war, the dollar had become a global standard. And in 1944, in a quiet New Hampshire town called Bretton Woods, a new world system was born. Every major currency would now be pegged to the dollar. And the dollar? It would be tied to gold. If you wanted gold, you gave the US your dollars and they'd hand you real gold in return. That was the deal. The dollar was now the world's throne. People believed it would reign forever. But power always carries one fatal flaw: it believes it can never fall. By the 1950s, the world was awash in dollars. America looked unstoppable. But beneath the surface, cracks began to form. Other nations started asking for their gold back, and America realized it didn't have enough to give. The vaults were running low, but the printing presses kept running. The system was breaking, and in 1971, it finally snapped. August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon addressed the nation. To protect America's interests, he announced that the U.S. would suspend the convertibility of dollars into gold. Temporarily, he said, but that temporary decision became permanent. From that moment, the dollar was no longer backed by gold, only by faith in the U.S. government. Paper now represented nothing but trust, and that trust could be printed. It was the birth of fiat money, money with no intrinsic value, existing only because we agreed to believe in it. The dollar had turned from a store of value into a debt instrument. To prevent total collapse, America created a new system, the petrodollar. Through a deal with Saudi Arabia, oil would now be sold exclusively in US dollars. If you wanted energy, you needed dollars. Gold was gone, but oil became the new backbone. And once again, the world's economy bowed to the dollar. But like every artificial structure, this too had an expiration date. Dependence brings power but also weakness. By the 1980s, the dollar had become more than money. It was a god. Consume, borrow, spend. The Reagan era preached prosperity through credit. Banks issued loans freely. People lived beyond their means. Debt was rebranded as freedom. The economy looked strong on paper, but underneath, it was hollow. Every dollar created was another promise, and every promise, another chain of debt. The system was growing, yes, but like a balloon filled with air, it only looked powerful until something pricked it. Then came 2008. The system collapsed under its own weight. Banks fell, markets froze, people lost homes and hope, but the dollar survived. How? Because the Federal Reserve did something no one had done before. It printed trillions out of thin air. Money was created with keystrokes, and suddenly, printing to save the system, became the new normal. But each time they printed, the dollar silently lost a bit of its soul. What was once a store of trust was now a tool of survival. The medicine had become the poison. By 2020, the illusion shattered. The pandemic hit, and once again more money, trillions more. But this time, everyone saw it. The dollar wasn't limitless strength, it was limitless dilution. There was more paper than ever and less belief than ever before. When money loses trust, it loses meaning. Today, the dollar is still the world's reserve currency, but its crown is slipping. The BRICS nations are trading outside the dollar. The petrodollar order is fading. Digital currencies are emerging. And for the first time, the world is daring to ask, maybe the dollar isn't forever. The fall of the dollar isn't just about price charts, it's about the erosion of confidence. For a century, people didn't just trust the dollar, they trusted America. But that trust is fading. What we're witnessing isn't just a currency shift, it's the slow death of a belief system. In 1900, $1 could buy what takes over $30 today. It's not just falling, now it's been falling for 120 years. We just didn't notice until now. Rome trusted its silver coins, then it diluted them, added copper, cut corners, debased the currency. Eventually, those coins were just metal discs. France printed money after its revolution. Within years, their paper became worthless. Now, the dollar walks the same path. Every empire, at the height of its confidence, creates its own collapse through its currency. Because money is not the source of value, trust is. Central banks still insist everything is under control. But history whispers otherwise. Systems like these don't explode, they erode. And when they fall, it's never loud at first. The dollar's decline isn't just economic, it's moral, it's psychological. It's the realization that the promise of endless growth was a myth. People are starting to ask not, how much money do I have? But, how real is my money? And that question will define the century ahead. The fall of the dollar won't be sudden. There will be no dramatic crash, no fiery end. It will be silent, a slow melt, like ice under sunlight. Everything looks fine until you realize the foundation has vanished. What we're witnessing isn't chaos, it's entropy. The system is consuming its own trust. And when trust disappears, the world must rewrite what value means. In 120 years, the dollar has transformed from gold to paper, from paper to data, from data to belief. But belief is fading. And this decline isn't just America's story, it's ours. Because we all believed in the dollar. But maybe it's time to ask, when money loses its value, how much of your value remains?